What is the ultimate all-time Champions Cup 15? Who are the best players in this competition as we're about to start year number 30 of what is now known as the Champions Cup, but what was historically known as the Heineken Cup, and is, as far as I'm concerned, the pinnacle of club rugby in the world, and it has been historically. And just to get a little bit excited about the matches that are coming up this weekend, I thought it'd be quite interesting just to debate and hopefully start a conversation with you about who are the best players in each position down the years of this competition. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Give the video a thumbs up. Hit subscribe. I'm Tim. This is Egg Chasers. And here is my 15. Tell me what you think of this, starting with Cian Healy. Just become Ireland's all-time record caps holder. His history with Ireland is long and distinguished. I mean, even more so when it comes to this competition. Cian Healy is the most capped Champions Cup or Heineken. I'm just going to call it the Champions Cup. In my heart, it's always the Heineken Cup. But just to make it easy, so I don't have to keep saying Champions Cup or Heineken Cup, I'll call it Champions Cup. The most capped player in Champions Cup history, Cian Healy has played in, count them, 8 finals. And he started in 2009. I mean, it's just bonkers, isn't it? He started the match, the final, in 2009 against Leicester. He started in 2011 against Northampton. He started in 2012 against Ulster. He was part of that Leinster dynasty that they built in that era. And he was also in the recent win in 2018. Obviously, he would have liked to have had a 5th title to his name. He's still got a chance this year, and Leinster are going all out to win the competition, aren't they? But Cian Healy is my loose head prop. Any arguments? Can't imagine there'll be many, but hey, feel free to suggest other players. I think Mako Vunipola would have to be a shout for Saracens. He was absolutely incredible. His Saracens teammate, Scout Brits, gets my number 2 jersey, though, in this. Winner in 2016 and 2017. 2 of Saracens' 3 victories. And the reason Scout Brits gets this over someone like William Servat for Toulouse, who is regarded by many as one of the best hookers in Europe ever. The reason I would go for Scout Brits, he was just such a difference maker. The way that he completely transformed the way Saracens played by just doing game-breaking, unpredictable. I mean, he completely changed the role of the hooker. And it was his performances for Saracens that was the springboard for him to go on and win a World Cup with the Springboks. Number 3, Carl Heyman, tight head prop. He was the captain in the year when Toulon won their 3rd straight Champions Cup trophy. He was the skipper of maybe the greatest team ever in this competition. I think there's a strong argument for that. And he was a colossus. Literally just a giant man, but also in terms of his performances as well. And in a team that was completely star-studded, Carl Heyman stood out and was the anchor for all of it. You'd have to mention Martin Castrogiovanni for Leicester, John Hayes for Munster, Uini Antonio more recently for La Rochelle. But that's my front row. Any arguments so far? Let me know. Second row, I found this one quite hard. I went for Maro Itoje. It's easy to forget that just how unplayable he was in those mid-2010s. 2015, was it 2017 and 2018 Saracens won it. Absolutely incredible. Yeah, unplayable. And a key part of... I mean, I'll tell you what, one of the big indications you can take of just how important Maro Itoje was and how good he was, there was a replacement that Saracens had on the bench in a couple of those finals at least. And they left Maro Itoje on for 79 minutes and 50 seconds out of the 80. That they just basically, once the game was won and it was over, then they sent the replacement on for about 10 seconds of the match because this guy was incredible. And you'd have to mention Fabien Pelouse, the great Toulouse captain, which is going back about 20 years for his fine performances. Maro Itoje and Paul O'Connell, that's a pretty fine Champions Cup second row pairing. You'd have to mention Martin Johnson as well, but Paul O'Connell, part of that Munster team that got so close in the early 2000s and then finally won it in 2006. And Paulie was such a giant part of that team. The bigger the game, the bigger the performance. Also, without winning it, Alan Wynne-Jones is a great Champions Cup player as well. So I'd have to mention him. Into the back row, Rocky Elsom for Leinster. Now, how do you feel about this one? Because he only played 1 season in this competition. But his performance in that 1 year was so magnificent that I think it's okay to reward quality even more and weight the quality of that 1 year above the quantity of some of the many years that other players played. 2009, man of the match in the final against Leicester, absolutely epic. Leinster might not win that year were it not for this guy. An incredible import for them, and was so good under Michael Checker that he went off to become the Australia captain, I think, basically straight after this. He was incredible that year, so he makes my team. And in the back row, alongside Thierry Dusautoir, who was, well, he was a runner-up with Biarritz, then he was a runner-up with Toulouse, then he finally got his hands on the trophy and won twice. An amazing back row forward, an engine that went on for days. A huge player. I'd also mention David Wallace for Munster, Jacques Berger for Saracens. Number 8, one of the easiest choices in the team, Lawrence Dallaglio, two-time winner in 04 and 07. He also won the Challenge Cup as well. One of quite only a few number of people that have actually done that. And mentions for Anthony Foley, Jamie Heaslip, Emmanuel Arinordaki, but at the time he was the best number 8 in Europe, if not the world. And yeah, just after winning a Rugby World Cup, went and dominated in the Champions Cup as well as skipper of Wasps. Halfbacks. Antoine Dupont is the scrum half. One of only 2 players. I'm just thinking about this in my team. I think it's only Maro Itoje. Oh, Cian Healy, obviously. Cian Healy, Maro Itoje, and Antoine Dupont. There's only 3 players that are still playing their rugby. And that's quite remarkable in a position like scrum half for Antoine Dupont. 2 wins in 2021 and the win this year. And you wouldn't bet against him adding to that multiple times, partly because Toulouse have got an incredible team, but partly because they've got this guy in their team. I mean, just look at that final back in May. Maybe, and I would argue, the greatest single Champions Cup performance out of all of those matches that have happened over 30 years. The performance by Antoine Dupont in May might be the greatest individual performance we have ever seen. Maybe we'll ever see. It was that good. And without him, they don't win that title. Simple as that. He's the number 9, no doubt. 10, fly half, who partners Antoine Dupont in this dream team, is the toughest selection that there is. So I'll tell you the contenders before I reveal who I picked. This is the one that I think will spark the most debate. Ronan O'Gara, top point scorer, and what did he win it? Won it a couple of times. Johnny Sexton, 4 wins, 6 finals. Johnny Wilkinson. Those are the 3. O'Gara, Sexton, Wilkinson. Who'd you go with? I found this so hard. I went with Johnny Wilkinson, that is, not Johnny Sexton. I think Ronan O'Gara and Johnny Sexton both have a genuine shout at it and probably could feel aggrieved about not being picked. I went for Johnny Wilkinson because, yes, they had an incredible team of Galacticos, all these superstars, but they were just a bunch of individuals and they were made into a team in large part due to Johnny Wilkinson, not just because he's the fulcrum of a team out on the field, but off the pitch as well. He was basically like the kind of spiritual leader, the coach, he was the glue that pulled that whole team together and created that Toulon dynasty for those 3 years. And yeah, they love him in France. And for France to love an Englishman as much as the French love Johnny Wilkinson tells you just what a special bloke he is. Centres, Yannick Josion from Toulouse. I mean, this guy had everything, absolutely everything. He was massive, firstly, like 6'4", 110 kilos. He was rapid, really, really intelligent. He had a great rugby brain as well. This guy had it all and was basically unplayable in those years in 2003, 2005 when Toulouse won the titles. Then he was the man of the match in the final in 05. Amazing player. A mention for Gordon Darcy, who was part of the most capped centre partnership in history, alongside Brian O'Driscoll, who does get in for Leinster. Bod, 33 tries, the second most of any player in this competition over its 30-year history, a 3-time winner. And I just think of a couple of individual matches. And this is what I've said this before. So many of my great rugby memories growing up are watching this competition. The rugby is just out of this world. It's as close as you get to Test rugby in club colours. And the performance of Brian O'Driscoll against Toulouse away in 2006, incredible. the performance of him in 2009 against Munster. They absolutely slaughtered Munster, and Brian O'Driscoll was just playing rugby from another dimension on that day. To the wings, and Brian O'Driscoll's captain for some of that, Issa Nathewa, and I talked about Johnny Wilkinson being the kind of glue that pulled Toulon together. You could probably say that about Nathewa. 4 titles to his name. And I mean, bearing in mind, he's keeping out some brilliant wingers like Vincent Clerc, Josh Lucy. He sometimes played at fullback, mostly played on the wing in the big games for Leinster in those Champions Cup wins. Captain for much of it. Amazing player. Great, even better bloke, and deserves to be in. And maybe a controversial pick. You might disagree with me on this one. Austin Healey. I had to get him in the team. I had to. He's that good. He was that good. So here's my justification for putting him on the wing. Okay, because I've overlooked Tommy Bowe, Shane Williams, Shane Horgan, Cedric Haymons. I've gone for Austin Healey on the wing because I had to get him in. He was in Heineken Cup or Champions Cup history. He might have some of the biggest big game moments of all. You think about the 0-1 final, and he made the break. Was it Stade Francais they played that year? I can't remember. But he made the break that led to the winning try in the closing moments. And then in the final against Munster the following year, he scored the decisive try. So on the biggest stage, he has huge impact. And he did that whether he was playing scrum half or fly half, which he did in finals of both of Heineken, of both of the titles that he won. But he played international rugby on the wing at the highest level, and he's in. Austin Healey is in. One of the best Heineken Cup players ever, in my humble opinion. As is Rob Kearney, who gets the 15 jersey. 4 wins to his name with Leinster. Geordie Murphy he kept out. I'd mentioned Nick Abendanon as well, who scored tries in 2 finals but never actually won it. This guy won it a bunch, and a big part of that was Leinster could have the confidence to go and play the way they wanted to play, knowing they had one of the most dependable blokes at the back, taking care of business when it was needed. Rob Kearney was magnificent. That is my team of the Champions Cup over the last 30 years. What players are there that are playing now that could etch their name into that list in the years to come? I'm looking at players like Jack Willis. If he continues to play with Toulouse the way that he did last season, then he could end up getting ahead of Thierry Dusautoir and players like that. But are there other guys that are playing now that could end up being legends of this competition? I wonder what players there are in South African teams that are new to this competition. Could someone like Sasha Feinberg-Ngomazulu end up becoming an all-time great in this competition? I really am looking forward to seeing the dynamics at play. I'm looking forward to this competition growing a bit more, hopefully rediscovering some of that magic that possibly been lost over the last couple of years. We will wait and see on that. The teams are starting to be announced for this weekend as well. I'm going to be covering the rugby. I'm going to Northampton for their game against Castro. I'm going to be working there, so I'll peel back the curtain and bring you some of the behind-the-scenes stuff from the Champions Cup action. And yeah, keep checking back on the channel. Tell me what you think down below. I'll see you on the next one.